there, and welcome to the Hit Like a Girl podcast. My name is Joy Rios, and on this podcast, we talk about how complicated healthcare is, and every single one of our guests is able to bring their expertise and sort of a piece of the healthcare or health IT puzzle. And so today, I'm really excited to welcome our next guest. I'm going to let you introduce yourself. Go ahead.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much, Joy. My name is Sunitha Sandeep, and I'm a transformative coach for high achieving and high functioning women professionals, executives, and leaders. I help them end their inner struggles of anxiety, burnout, stress, lack of energy, and fear, so that they can reach higher professional success, but with deep inner fulfillment also.
I have so many questions about this, but go ahead, keep going.
And I'm also certified as a mindfulness and meditation teacher, a trauma support specialist, positive psychology practitioner, and of course a coach, as a transformative coach. And yeah, I'm just here to share and then see where it takes.
So, okay, I want to know how did you, a little bit about your journey. How did you fall into this as your career? Let's start there.
Yeah. So many years ago, and I speak about this in my TEDx talk also. There was a trauma that I went through, and all the details are there in that TEDx talk, so we won't go deeper into the trauma. But I think coming out of the trauma, I was suffering. My body was in constant struggle. I was going through a lot of PTSD syndrome, PTSD symptoms of severe pain in the body, lot of fatigue, insomnia, panic attacks, and then the mental problems of the depression and anxiety, panic attacks. And I needed a way to get out of this. And I thought I could easily get out of this, but then my whole journey over the last 15 years or so has been that to understand and accept myself, and then using my trauma as a catalyst to awaken my true potential. And that has been my journey, and that's exactly what I teach and coach for other women too. And since I come from a high achieving and high performing background, I just relate to a lot of the fears and the stories and the belief structures that we have as women who are like really high functioning and multitasking, and then they do like, give me a laundry list of to-dos and I can go get it done kind of women. So it's just my personal journey that I think at certain point you just realize that, oh, I think it's now the time for you to just spread this message and then see what you can do to other women. And that's how this whole journey started.
Thank you for sharing. And I, definitely will spend time looking and watching your TEDx. I'm very interested in that. But coming from a place where you've been high performing, I'm assuming at your education and your training, and then sort of transitioning to more of an internal look and perspective.
Yeah.
Not everybody gets that. I mean, it's one thing like with the education, there's steps and stages and milestones that you can track. There's not really the same thing for an internal journey.
Yeah.
Can you speak a little bit about that?
Yeah, that's beautiful that you even asked that question. Not many even, it's very difficult to even comprehend this. That's where I talk about the shift from a masculine energy to a feminine energy. And growing up, I think more so for the high achieving and high functioning women, we have been taught that go get this one after the other, this achievement, this work, this promotion, this, right? But then we do all of those things. And by the time we reach 35, 40, it's like, oh, we have done all of these things. And life looks like a success on paper. That internally, when you look at your relationships, your marriage, your kids, or just the relationship that you have with yourself,
Mm-hmm.
when you look at that, you realize there's something lacking. It's not fulfilling anymore. And you begin to question, you begin to go into these deeper signs of deeper depths of questions like, what's the meaning? What's the purpose? Why am I doing this? Is this all to life? Right? And then is a very ripe situation, or a ripe place for women to somehow intuitively realize that what I have been doing all this time is not going to work for me for the rest of my time. It isn't to say that whatever they did till the time was not helpful. It's just a way in our conscious evolution, as a human evolution. You go through, like, a toddler, a baby, to a toddler, to, like, adolescence, to young adults, to adults, and old age. Similarly, I think we have used up our masculine energy to reach certain place, to achieve certain things that we wanted to, or whatever the society wants it from us, and that's okay. But I think from now on, the important realization to have is, whatever helped me till this time is not going to help me for the rest of my life. And that's where the shift needs to happen. And that's a completely different journey, exactly as you said. There are no steps to follow. And it's very difficult for people to even comprehend and then say, but how? You see, when I just tell them to, like, let's see, let's stay here and then try to do nothing and just be present. But how do I do it? How do I do? And that's the whole shift, which I think is happening, Joy, that I see for a lot of people. It is happening. It's slowly they're moving into that being state.
Yeah. I think we can put some of that on the pandemic. I think a lot of people had some time to
Yeah,
be alone and really think, and I can really speak
yeah,
to that and my personal journey too. But certain questions that have come up for me, and as an entrepreneur, as somebody who's, started businesses and watched them grow, there's times when I question, well, why hasn't it grown more? Or why hasn't it, whatever the
yeah,
question is around,
yeah.
like, what is possible. But some of my own internal conversation is like trying to understand, what are my own limiting beliefs? What is it
Yeah.
internally that either I have grown up with, either probably unconsciously, that is actually pouring into, like, what I'm pouring into my business, and not realizing that there are limitations, but those are my own personal limitations too,
Yes,
not
yes.
necessarily from an external world. So when you're coaching women who are starting their own business, like, how do you uncover that or help them discover maybe some of their own limiting beliefs?
Yeah, so so it's a lot of self-inquiry practices, a lot of inquiry practices. Some of the inquiry practices go so deep that you don't even know those repressed emotions or repressed conditioning or repressed beliefs were even there. And sometimes it goes even beyond what you did. It could have come from a cultural impact, or it could have come from, like, a family related one. Um, and sometimes you never know why it happened, but you're carrying it. And there are ways there are some methodologies that you can do, not more like a doing, I need to do this, I need to do it. It's more about asking the right kind of questions and not waiting for an answer, just
Okay, let's
listening.
talk about
It's
that.
not like,
Just
okay, I'm going to
listening.
wait till, yeah, just listening. It's listening. Okay, so it's waiting to talk or waiting to get something versus just listening, right? And it's a big difference. When you're
Hmm.
talking, I can wait so that you finish and I can talk, versus when you're talking, I just listen, right? And that's the way we just ask a question and not wait for anything. There's no expectations, and then see what comes up. And it's not an easy thing that'll just happen the first time that you ask, but it's a constant way of just awakening the trueness, the truth within us, to just trigger it. The first question I ask for anybody, whether an entrepreneur or professional, like a 9 to 5 professional, is, why are you doing what you're doing? See, because that hits a very deep place within them. Why?
Mm-hmm.
And when you go extremely deeper, there are fears associated with it. And the deep held fears of feeling worthlessness, feeling unloved, feeling insignificant, feeling lonely, feeling not good enough, most of the time are driving what we do. And as long as those fears are driving what we do, it's very difficult for us to do the next thing that we just think and we just want to do, because we always feel like that there are two forces operating in like two different or like opposing directions. There's something that we want to do, but then there's something that's again pulling you back. It always feels like there's a constant internal conflict. I need to do, but I can't do. I need to do. And the more you have that I need to do, the more you have the other force that is pulling you. And the more and more you let go of the I really need to do versus let me just see what comes and then let me do what it is, then the other force that is pulling you in the opposite direction will also lessen. So it's like, as they say, what you resist persists.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, go ahead.
Well, the things that are coming up for me, anxiousness, anxiety and depression, and also the conversation around like human being versus human doing, right? We are very much in a society that is looking at production and how much we accomplish and staying busy in this hustle culture.
Yeah.
But how is it that, or can you speak to how important it is to sort of stop and really pay attention to, what is driving you and why? I mean, you're kind of talking on that already, but I guess, can we bring it into healthcare and like what people experience, either those who are working in healthcare or are experiencing the healthcare system or will be as a result of their anxiety and depression?
Yeah. For me, I suffered from anxiety. I suffered from depression. I was also taking medication for it. And I really feel that anxiety and depression are really not illnesses, but they are just symptoms of something that's hidden extremely deep.
Mm-hmm.
And till we go down to that depth within us and then release, the symptoms will continue to happen. And all the things that we can do to bypass those fears will just be like, okay, you won't take your attention from here, put it here, but then what is causing the problem here will still be there. We can take medication to numb all our feelings and not feel anxious or so, but it'll continue to be there. So I think it's extremely important that people who are going through anxiety and depression to go a little bit deeper. And anxiety and depression is just like the two ends of the spectrum. In between, there are so many others too. There's panic attacks that happen, right? There's like a feeling of sometimes like mood swings that happen, emotional outbursts that happen to people, a feeling of like extremely doneness and a lack of energy. Then there is chronic pain, then there's a chronic fatigue that happens. So it's a whole big spectrum there, right? And then eventually this will start causing burnout for us. Like, I don't feel like doing anything at all. I just want to just not do anything at all. Or I just want to take a break. I just want to leave my job. And unless and until we dive a little bit extremely in depth as to see why it is causing us, and there are multiple levels of digging deep. First level is just understanding our personality types. We are more about, women especially, perfectionists. We are more about like giving a lot to others. We are more about like, not setting good boundaries, or we set extremely strong boundaries. And so it's, or we're giving too much, or we just withhold too much, right? We operate in these terms of like polarities. So just understanding our archetypal patterns that are causing, and then any other conditioning that we went through as kids. For example, if I was always praised for achieving, and that is how I got attention in my world, that is what I plan to do for the rest of my life. But then the energy of that will slowly starts to deplete away, right? Because you have to achieve something, and then you expect somebody else to keep constantly praising you and giving you that recognition. And when that doesn't happen, the energy is lost. But then you are lost. What else would you do? Because your whole identity is built on that. So exploring your identities from that level of what your archetypal patterns are, and most importantly, understanding what is holding us from a somatic level. And until and unless we get down to the level of the body, because we can do everything here, we can do at the level of emotions too, but at the level of body, it's a whole new thing. It's its own thing. And unless until the nervous system and the body feel safe to relax, it won't do. Until your body is contracting.
Yeah. I have two things I wanted to ask, because I'm
Yeah,
like,
go
okay,
ahead.
wait, I really want to talk about the somatic part, but before we get there, I want to touch on the emotional part that it's like sort of layers a little bit. And I feel like we're conditioned as women to smile, be happy, be kind, be nurturing, to give to others. Like, we're rewarded for that type of behavior.
Yeah.
As I've gotten older, I have had a new relationship with emotions, and my name is Joy. Like, so,
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
even just in my own conditioning of how I
Conditioning, it
show
just
up in the
feels.
world,
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
supposed to like bring smiles to people's face. And yet there have been things that have happened in my life or through
of
the course
course.
of just being alive that I'm like, yeah, I feel some
Yeah,
anger, like having a
yeah,
new relationship with the emotion of, anger. And I've even read that anger isn't even emotion. It's actually a secondary emotion that is based on safety or sadness or fear.
yeah,
But kind of allowing for it and making space for these other, negative, so to speak, emotions, because they're there for a reason. They're
yeah,
there to, acknowledge a boundary or acknowledge that you're not safe or try to protect you in some form or fashion. But
yeah,
I've recognized that as I've gotten older, um, my relationship with emotions has totally changed. And I didn't even recognize that when I was younger. I don't think that I would allow for that. I wasn't making space for them. And therefore, they're holding a place in my body to the
yeah,
somatic aspect of it. So
yeah.
I don't fully understand that. It's still a journey, but I would love to kind of hear your take on that aspect.
Yeah, absolutely beautiful. So in my TED talk, I make a statement. We need to shift from trying to feel better to becoming better at feeling. And I think
See,
this is the
why? Why
journey.
is that? Like, that's a really key point. It's just like,
Yeah,
especially when you say like, "Oh, I'm upset," or I'm mad." Like, a lot of people's response is, "Don't be mad. Don't
I
be
know. Yeah.
sad." Yeah,
Don't be
just don't
mad.
be mad. Just don't do that.
Yeah,
And it's
yeah,
like, well, no, I feel that way for a reason, and I want to honor that reason.
yeah,
And it doesn't mean that I'll feel that way forever. I like
yeah,
to also consider lately this, like, emotions are like clouds, or
yeah,
the
yeah,
weather, that they'll keep moving, but you still need to feel it. You can't just be as sunny and
yeah,
clear all the time.
yeah, yeah, yeah. The trick there is to feel it but not express it and transmute it to presence. That's the trick.
How do you do that?
How do we do that? There again, we went back to how. How do we do?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So, first of all, like as you said, acceptance that emotions are all kinds of emotions, the complete spectrum of being a human. What is it to be a human? It's messful. Yes, it is messy. Like a lot of things, good things happen, negative things happen. You feel good, you don't feel good. Just having that awareness that it's okay to feel bad certain times. It's okay, because growing up, we were told, oh, don't cry, don't cry. Oh, everything will happen the way you wanted. Don't cry. Oh, you're crying, I'll get you like a candy or something, so don't cry, right? So we somehow felt that we should not be crying. We should not show our anger. We should not, like, sometimes stand up and then say that this is not the way I want. Like, even expressing your courage is kind of frowned upon in the society, that you just can't. No, like, you can't be very stern and say certain things. And then what we do is we make an identity out of that, and then say we build a secondary identity over it that guards this. It's like a fortress that we build, and then we put our identity onto this fortress in such a way that no matter what happens in my life, this fortress is going to help me, protect me from making sure that none of those emotions ooze out of me. And just keeping this fortress on all the time is depleting. It's difficult. So just understanding that it's okay to have that, and knowing, as you said, these fortresses are just trying to protect us, thinking that it's a wrong thing to express those emotions. So that way, what will happen is just having that acceptance will help you to stop, or will help us to stop beating ourselves from, first of all, having those emotions. And it's like a constant inner struggle. Like, I should not feel, I should feel, I should not feel, I should feel. And then the next level is trying to see what those emotions talk to us. Why is there an anger? Why are you feeling sad? It's okay to feel sad, but what is it? Why are you feeling sad? Because even the feeling, the emotion, is one layer above your somatic level, right? That there is a fear. There's a fear from the body that is stuck. There's an insecure feeling that something is not safe. And that's why you have this fear of anger, or like emotional outbursts, or like frustration, or hate, or jealousy, or envy, or any of those sorts, right? And then, how does it feel? What does frustration feel like? What does it feel?
You can actually feel like, that's the other part. There's like, okay, I was really angry last week and I was feeling it. And I went through this whole TikTok rabbit hole, because that's just the reality these days. And I found kind of a graph, like body graphs of how emotions feel within your body. And I was looking at anger in particular, and it's like in your belly, or in your fist, or in your head, and then different emotions have different ways of expressing themselves, that you literally feel them differently in your body. And paying attention to that is really important. You're like, okay, well then how can I soothe that? Or how can I, like you said earlier, transmute it? Or I just keep thinking about processing it. It's like, it's okay to feel this way, but how do I process it so that it makes its way through my body and keeps moving? Keep it moving.
It's definitely not an easy process, and especially for somebody who's gone through any kind of a traumatic event, processing that has to be done in a very safe place. The body needs to feel safe to even talk about it. Right? So when we are going down to the level of somatic, it's even beyond emotions. And sometimes you will have an answer, sometimes you won't even have an answer. It doesn't want to talk. Emotions, however, will talk. Like, if you sit with it, and there are ways to inquire into those emotions, and usually there is always something associated with why it's feeling the way it's feeling. It could be like mommy told me something or daddy told me something or something that would have happened like 30 years ago or 15 years ago, who knows, like, and then these, it's a very curious way of being with it and asking, if this emotion were to talk, what is it going to say to me? And then you taking the position of presence and then treating it like your child. And then, like, it's okay, you can be here. You don't want to talk, don't talk. It's fine. But you can be here. You could be here, right? And then it wants to start expressing it. But then that's where, instead of expressing, because when we have anger outbursts, so we don't want to go and start expressing it. Of course, expressing might also release it, but that's not the way we want to release. So it's just a very inquiry based practice, talking to those emotions and then giving it a name, asking it to say what it wants to say, um, giving that emotion the complete embracement to say it's okay the way you are. You don't want to change. That's fine. You can stay as long as you want, and just giving it the space, because the minute you give it the space, it wants to melt, because that's what healing is. Because nothing wants to stay within our body in a contracted mode. And if you're contracting an emotion and not letting it come out, it just feels that there's more pressure on it. And life naturally is not something that it wants to be under pressure. Life wants to be free. Freedom is our movement, internally and externally. So when you start giving it a little bit space, it starts communicating. It can take a little bit of a practice, but it's a beautiful art. It's just like how we talk to our kids.
I saw somebody refer to it as like flirting with your emotions. Like even if you just like, oh, you flirt with your anger of like, oh, look at you trying to protect me.
Yeah.
You know?
Flirting, loving, intimacy, everything with those emotions. And then they will start revealing deeper fears, even deeper fears. And then again, now it comes down to the body sensations. What does it feel like? What does being worthless feel like? Because everything that we want to do in our life, quite a lot, is to make sure that we don't feel worthless, that we don't feel unloved, we don't want to feel lonely, we don't want to feel shame and guilt. But then, how does worthless feel like? What is the sensation attached to it? Because it's a deep tummy area that becomes vulnerable now the minute you talk about being worthless, because it's an identity question now for you. Because anytime it hits the identity, it goes down to your gut level.
Wow. How many people are walking around with the tools that they need in order to, I mean, we suffer from anxiety, depression, and burnout, all of these things. Is it really just slowing down and giving ourselves the space and the time, like to find some sort of peace with?
Yeah, that's only one part of the puzzle.
Okay.
That's only one part. That's only one level of journey. To really get away from our suffering, we have to go through the suffering. If we are hitting the burnout, anxiety, and stress, and then we are saying like, my work is causing me, or my home is causing me, that I'm just gonna live a life just trying to be alone. Maybe for some it is going to work, but then internally, if you just go and ask, maybe that's not what you want. You want a way to be active in your life, do the things that you want to do, yet not be affected by anxiety and stress. I think for most it's that way, because I don't think we are in an age wherein we can just go live on the cave, like live in the cave, live on the mountains or so, right? So we want both, which means you do the healing, and it's a continuous process. It's not like an end you're done for life, and then everything will just be okay. It's a continuous process of going deep within understanding yourself, continuous process of healing, and then taking your insights back into the world as a business person, as an entrepreneur, as a professional, as a mother, as a wife, as a partner, in all of the roles. Because unless and until that comes back to the true expression of who we are as human beings, the cycle is not complete, and then there's still suffering. So it's a continuous process, and then go back into the world. But then now you go back into the world with less inner conflict within yourself and more energy to do what you want to do. And then what you do now is driven by being, not from fear. That's all is the difference. That's all is the difference.
What would you say to people who, well, are in systems that don't necessarily allow for that kind of change? Like I'm thinking right now of doctors or clinicians experiencing burnout. And if the message to them is, and this is totally painting with a very wide brush of just, if the message to them is just do more yoga and it's going to be fine. Like, how do we keep it from being that kind of a platitude of just like, that's not really what we're talking about here?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Of course, yoga helps. Of course, any of the other activities helps, but then they all help in the short term. That's all. Unless and until it hits those deeper parts and you release, it's literally not gonna help. And then working on these doesn't mean that they need to take a break. Like, they'll have to take like a sabbatical or anything like that. And I think if even 1 hour that they spend just understanding these insights, and my program, I take them through these 5 shifts in my program, and all of these women are working, managing home with, like, kids activities, and there's something going on at work, then they're running their businesses, they're also like they're a partner, and that they're still looking for their passion and purpose that they want to do. So the most exhilaration in your journey as a human and to your next level happens in your life. There's a reason why we are given our life the way it's given. And I truly believe that. Because then we can start using the struggles in our life as a path to our growth, to our next level growth. We don't want to run away from it, because our true growth happens when we embrace the path, the life that is actually given to us now. So even if you can take like an hour every day, just to go within, oh, these are my archetypal patterns. Oh, these are the triggers that's causing me. Oh, and because this is driven by my fear. Just having that awareness was one big shift. And then sometimes to go within, somebody who comes with a little bit of a extensive childhood conditioning, or like a trauma, or and again, trauma doesn't mean that it has to be some big event. Trauma is a very subjective experience. It's each person knows what they're not able to express, what is being suppressed. They know that somewhere. They just feel stuck, and nothing they do helps. So sometimes it helps to work with somebody to give them like a safe space to express that or transmute that in a very safe way. And then again, going back into the world, because no matter what you do, unless and until you go back into the world, because real life is where the beautiful triggers are, and we will start welcoming our triggers. Oh, this is happening, this person is talking this way, or this is like the work that I need to do. It's like an automate, like continuous, the same work. Oh, those are the beautiful triggers now for your life. Use them, welcome your triggers. And that's a big shift. That's a big perspective in how we look at our lives. Triggers are not seen as something
Yeah.
to avoid. Triggers are something like, oh my God, I've given an opportunity. What more can I do? And again, I'm saying that it's an easy thing. It's not very easy, but I think it's sometime you have to start. If not now, then when?
Right. I mean, I think that people get taught that in a business setting, that you can think of problems as opportunities, but I don't know that we necessarily apply that to ourselves too. I'm experiencing this struggle, or I'm really annoyed by whatever it is. Then you're like, oh, can be tuned in to that is a lesson for me. It's clearly one I need to learn. Otherwise, it wouldn't be presenting itself in my life right now.
Yeah. And then sometimes knowing that, it's okay to be annoyed. And there's a reason, because when you get annoyed, you take certain actions. When you get frustrated, you change certain things. When you get angry, there's a power hidden behind it. There's a courage that comes out of it, right? But then choosing from where the anger comes from, or understanding where the anger is coming from. Is the anger coming from fear because you don't want to face the fear, or is the anger coming from a deeper place, so that a change needs to happen in your life, right? And I think that's the shift, that if we can catch on to that, if we can latch onto that, I think then every emotion is fine.
Well, and I also think that once you get to that place too, there's an amount of either dread or annoyance of just like everyday things. Like nobody says that doing the dishes has to be a terrible experience. Like you can actually enjoy the process of experiencing warm water on your hands or washing a plate, or like even if it takes half an hour, it doesn't have to be something that's like, oh, we've said that this is annoying because it's cleaning and making, cleaning up a mess. Like you can enjoy that. You can play music. I think that when you shift into thinking of like, well, what people might assume or take on as problems aren't necessarily so bad or problems.
Aren't necessarily problems. So beautifully said, Joy. In fact, studies have said that, like, even in my life or even in my client's life, I've seen that we worry more about than doing, because the doing part is only 5 minutes. Like,
Right.
you just get up, do certain things, but then we would have worried about it for about 2 hours. And then when you get to do it, it's only 5 minutes.
And I think that that's that relationship of just like allowing for the feeling, even if what you were saying about, resisting persists, is like, well, once you allow it, watch it dissolve. It will only hang out for a little bit.
It'll hang out for a little bit. And which author, I forgot the name of the author, she calls it completing the cycle. Letting it through the tunnel and let it complete its cycle. That's all you need to do. But I think it's not an easy process, right? It's not easy process, because all through our life we are told not to do that, and then suddenly it's like, oh, give it the space.
You have to allow yourself the space to undo the conditioning, or even acknowledge that there has been conditioning first, then figure out how to undo it, and then move, with intention from there. Sunitha, I feel like I could talk with you all day. If people want to work with you or follow you, or somehow get involved in what you do, how would you direct them?
Yeah, my website has all the details, www.sunithasandeep.com, SUNITHASANDEEP.com. I also have a free ebook there that just talks about a little bit of my journey and what we women go through, and then what steps you can take to shift more from a masculine energy to a more effortless way of being in life. There's an ebook that you can just get it. It's free. There's also a 1-hour masterclass that I put together, just talks about the program that I teach. It's called as the Awake, AWAKE, and it's an acronym. And each of the 5 shifts that I talk there: awareness, going within, action, conscious action, kindling our truth, and then finally embodied engagement. So it just talks about those shifts that we can just take even today. And if somebody is interested in working with me, there's also a link that says how they can book a call with me. The 1-hour call is free. It's just to see if we are good to to work with each other, and yeah, and then take it from there.
Wonderful. Well, I will include all of that in the show notes so people have easy access to you. And thank you again for your time today. This has been wonderful.
Thank you so much, Joy. I really want to, lots of gratitude for having me on this show. And whatever work you're doing is amazing. Thank you.
My pleasure.